So imagine you're settling in to watch like a totally standard down-the-middle romantic comedy.
Right, the kind of movie where you know exactly what's going to happen.
Exactly. You know the formula because, I mean, we've all been trained to recognize it by now. You've got the small town setting, high school sweethearts, wedding bells on the horizon, maybe a quirky misunderstanding about a floral arrangement or something.
Yeah, the quintessential comfort food cinema. I mean, we gravitate toward these films specifically for the predictability. The whole psychological appeal is just rooted in knowing the destination and, feeling perfectly safe during the journey.
But imagine you are settling into that safety, right? You blink, and suddenly our small-town hairdresser protagonist is literally dodging Italian assassins through the streets of Hollywood.
It escalates so incredibly fast.
It's wild because she accidentally stole a briefcase that has, like, plans to destroy the global financial system inside. And she's being saved by the actor John Slattery, who is, for some reason, using lethal barehanded martial arts.
Oh, and Weird Al Yankovic is holding people at gunpoint.
Yes. Weird Al has a gun.
Mm-hmm.
And somehow the whole thing resolves with Jon Hamm descending from the sky in a hot air balloon.
I know, when you just lay it out like that, it sounds like 3 different scripts got fed into a shredder and taped back together.
It really does. But welcome to today's deep dive, everyone, because we are unpacking what sounds like an absolute fever dream, but is actually one of the most highly anticipated films of the year.
Yeah, Gail Daughtry and the Celebrity Sex Pass.
That's the one. And to figure out how this movie actually functions, we're pulling from a massive stack of sources today. We've got early Sundance Film Festival reviews, deep dive structural analyses from Letterboxd film critics, David Wain's own production notes, and that glowing Rotten Tomatoes consensus.
Which gave it a 3.5 out of 5, by the way.
Right, which is huge for a comedy like this. It hits theaters on July 10th, 2026, after Sony Pictures Classics won this massive bidding war against, like, Republic Pictures and Lionsgate.
So our mission today is really to deconstruct how filmmaker David Wain, the mind behind Wet Hot American Summer, and they came together.
Oh, I love Wet Hot American Summer.
Right, classic. But we need to figure out how he takes this aggressively ludicrous premise and molds it into what critics are literally calling an unexpectedly heartfelt adventure.
Yeah, like how do you escalate a rom-com into a full-blown action movie without just completely breaking the audience's trust?
Exactly.
Well, let's start with the inciting incident, because it all begins so innocently in Willowbrook, Kansas. We meet our protagonist, Gail Daughtry, who's played by Zoey Deutch.
And she's great in this.
She really is. She's a hairdresser. She's 2 weeks away from marrying her high school sweetheart, Tom, played by Ken Marino. And they have this classic couples agreement, the celebrity pass.
Yes. The hypothetical freebie. The single famous person you are permitted to sleep with, totally consequence-free if the stars somehow magically aligned.
Right. So Tom picks Jennifer Aniston. Gail picks Jon Hamm. And they laugh about it because, they live in rural Kansas. It's a fantasy with 0 real-world stakes for them.
Until it isn't.
Exactly, because then Tom goes to a local book signing.
Yeah.
And Jennifer Aniston just happens to be there. And Tom, he activates the pass.
He actually goes through with it.
He does it. He comes home, and he tells Gail. And this is where the movie instantly weaponizes the whole concept of comfort food cinema.
It really does. The narrative takes the audience's expectation of that, that quirky misunderstanding we talked about, and replaces it with a devastating psychological dilemma.
Because Tom didn't technically do anything wrong.
Right. If we look at the early Sundance reviews, critics highlighted this specific plot point as a masterclass in establishing cognitive dissonance. Tom operated entirely within the explicitly defined boundaries of their relationship agreement.
I read it like someone defending the terms and conditions of the software update, Like Tom followed the literal written rules of the contract to the letter. He checked the box.
Yes, the terms of service defense.
Right, but you look at the visceral reality of what just happened, and the logic is just horrifying.
Yeah.
He shattered his partner's trust, but he's standing there holding up a legally binding hypothetical joke as a shield.
Because human emotions simply cannot be governed by technicalities or, legalistic loopholes. Tom says, but we had an agreement. Completely missing the fact that a theoretical fantasy just doesn't account for the crushing weight of actual betrayal.
No, of course not.
And because he's technically in the right, it leaves Gail without a standard societal script for how to react. She can't just call him a cheater.
Right, because he didn't cheat. technically.
Exactly, and that cognitive dissonance is what drives her to completely lose her mind.
Oh, she is furious. Like in that very
Yeah.
specific, impulsive way that only a person 2 weeks out from their wedding can be. So she consults a psychic.
Naturally.
Naturally. And the psychic tells her she has to go use her side of the agreement to balance things out. She has to find Jon Hamm. So she tags along on a trip to Los Angeles with her friend Otto, played by Ben Wang.
Okay, but this is the crucial pivot point of the film.
Yeah, and I actually want to pause here and challenge the mechanics of this transition a bit. Because if I am watching a movie about a heartbroken hairdresser and suddenly international assassins show up, my instinct is to check my ticket and make sure I didn't wander into a Bourne Identity sequel.
Right, it sounds totally jarring.
Yeah, so how does David Wain justify this massive leap in tone?
Well, it requires a massive structural safety net, which the letterboxed structural analyses map out beautifully. The film leans entirely on the architecture of The Wizard of Oz.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah, we don't need to rehash basic story structures, but think about the psychological function of Oz. A Midwestern woman's life is upended by a local threat. She gets swept away to a chaotic, brightly colored, magical city.
Which in this case is Los Angeles.
Exactly, and she has to build a crew of misfit companions.
Okay, LA is Oz. I buy that. But if we are following that specific framework, there has to be a tornado, right? Like a boundary line where the laws of physics and reality officially change.
There is. The airport?
Yeah.
LAX is the tornado.
Oh, that's where the briefcase swap happens.
Exactly.
So Gail's totally ordinary luggage gets accidentally swapped at baggage claim with a briefcase belonging to a woman named Ludovica.
Who is an Italian criminal played by Sabrina Impasciatore.
Right, and this briefcase contains documents detailing a master plan to destroy the world's financial system. So suddenly, Gail is carrying a global doomsday device, and she is being hunted through Hollywood by two Italian assassins named Sergio and Niccolo.
And what's brilliant about this, and David Wain actually mentioned this in his production notes, is how the film uses external absurdity to validate Gail's internal state.
What do you mean?
Well, think about the last time you experienced a devastating heartbreak. It literally feels like the end of the world. Your entire personal ecosystem has collapsed.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
So Wayne takes that internal emotional apocalypse and externalizes it. The physical stakes of the movie rise to match the emotional stakes of the protagonist. A plot to destroy global capitalism is really just a visual metaphor for Tom sleeping with Jennifer Aniston.
That makes perfect sense. Her world is ending, so the literal world is ending.
Exactly.
And even with these assassins on her tail, Gail refuses to abandon her quest to find Jon Hamm. So she and Otto start assembling their party. First, they go to Hamm's talent agency, where they meet Caleb, an aspiring agent.
And things do not go well for Caleb.
No. Through sheer collateral damage, Gail and Otto cause Caleb to get fired. So with nothing left to lose, Caleb steals Jon Hamm's home address and joins the crew.
Which sets up an encounter that the Sundance audience apparently gave a standing ovation to mid-movie.
I can see why. So they arrive at Jon Hamm's house, but Jon Hamm doesn't live there anymore.
No, he does not.
The house has been sold to Weird Al Yankovic, who comes out to defend his property holding a firearm.
It's just so absurd.
It feels exactly like watching a tabletop role-playing game go completely off the rails, like Dungeons & Dragons.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
Like, the players keep making the most chaotic, unhinged choices, deciding to break into a random house instead of following the main quest. And the poor game master just has to sweat behind the screen and make Weird Al Yankovic a canonical threat.
The tabletop analogy works perfectly because it highlights how the environment reacts dynamically to the character's absurdity. But the execution of the scene is really where Wayne's direction shines.
Well, so?
Because a lesser director would have played the Weird Al cameo for broad comedy. We'd get an accordion joke or a wink to the camera. But Wain shoots the scene with severe directorial restraint.
Okay, restraint is not the word I would naturally associate with an armed Weird Al Yankovic.
I know, but look at the visual and auditory language of the scene. The production notes detail how the lighting drops into these heavy shadows. The camera angles frame Al from a low, intimidating angle, mimicking a tense thriller villain.
Wait, really? They shot it like a thriller.
Yeah. The sound design drops out the comedic score and amplifies the heavy, mechanical click of a safety being turned off. In the reality of this film, he is a homeowner genuinely protecting his property from trespassers.
It is so funny.
Right. The comedy comes from the friction between our real-world perception of Weird Al and the deadly, serious cinematic environment he's placed in.
Okay, so fleeing from that heavily defended house, the party bumps into Vincent, a former paparazzo whose ultimate white whale is photographing Jon Hamm. So he joins up too.
The party is growing.
Yeah, so we have Gail the hairdresser, Otto her friend, Caleb the unemployed agent, and Vincent the desperate photographer. But they need an insider who actually knows Hamm, which brings in a wildly effective piece of metacasting.
John Slattery, playing himself.
Yes.
The casting of John Slattery does an immense amount of narrative heavy lifting here. I mean, Slattery and Hamm played Roger Sterling and Don Draper, respectively, for 7 years on Mad Men.
Right, they're iconic together.
Exactly. They are inextricably linked in the pop culture consciousness. So by casting Slattery, the film bypasses the need for 20 minutes of exposition. Audiences bring their pre-existing parasocial relationship with that dynamic straight into the theater. We implicitly trust that Slattery can find Hamm.
But Slattery won't just hand over the address. He insists on joining them. And he vaguely threatens the group by claiming he possesses formidable self-defense skills.
Which is such a weird flex.
Right. You look at John Slattery, this suave executive in a tailored suit, and you just assume it's a dry, sarcastic bluff.
Yeah.
So the party, now a party of 5, finally tracks Hamm down to a hotel room in Los Angeles.
And this sequence from the hotel hallway to the bloody aftermath, it happens incredibly fast, but the mechanics of it are fascinating.
Oh, it's so tense.
Yeah, because this is the climax where all the disparate, chaotic plot threads finally collide. To even get into the room, they have to get past Terrence, Hamm's security guard. And Terrence demands a pitch. He will only let them in if they have a movie for Hamm to star in.
But they don't have a script. They have the documents from the Italian criminal's briefcase. The literal blueprints for global financial ruin. So they pivot. They pitch these actual terror plans as a script for a high-stakes heist movie.
It is a phenomenal satirical layer. I mean, you have a group of desperate people pitching an active terrorist plot as intellectual property to a Hollywood security guard.
Just to get in the door.
Right, simply to facilitate a revenge fantasy based on a relationship loophole. It's a complete farce, but the tension is agonizing because the audience knows the real assassins are closing in while this ridiculous pitch is happening.
So Jon Hamm hears the pitch and politely declines the project. And at that exact moment of rejection, the Italian assassins Sergio, Niccolo, and the boss, Ludovica, breach the hotel room.
And all hell breaks loose.
Gail and Otto are grabbed. The movie drops the comedy entirely. And John Slattery's claim about his formidable self-defense skills turns out to be entirely factual.
Which is just incredible. The tonal whiplash here could have easily alienated the audience. To transition from a goofy buddy road trip, pitching a fake movie into a visceral, kinetic action sequence requires really precise technical maneuvering.
See, I would normally think sudden violence in a comedy is just for shock value, you know? Like something out of Pineapple Express. Is Wain just trying to startle the audience here?
It's not just shock value, actually. It's an escalation of the film's internal logic. According to the structural analyses from film critics, the visual language shifts aggressively to signal the change.
How do they do that?
Well, the color palette cools down, the editing becomes rapid and rhythmic, and the camera adopts a handheld, frantic energy reminiscent of the John Wick franchise. And then Slattery brutally dispatches the henchman with his bare hands.
Hand-to-hand combat from Roger Sterling. Unbelievable. And it isn't just Slattery. Gail is flooded with adrenaline. She sees Ludovica, the international crime boss, attempting to escape, and Gail kills her.
Yeah, she does.
A woman who, a few days prior, was arguing about floral arrangements in Kansas, effectively neutralizes a global threat.
Which represents the ultimate climax of her transformation. She has fully shed her Midwestern identity. The physical act of surviving the assassins mirrors her emotional survival of Tom's betrayal.
So the dust settles, the hotel room is destroyed. Jon Hamm, having witnessed this entire bloodbath, decides to reward the survivors.
It heavily mirrors the wizard handing out the brain, the heart, and the courage at the end of Oz.
Oh, that's such a good point. So Vincent gets his exclusive photograph of Jon Hamm. Caleb leverages the chaotic situation to get his talent agency job back. Slattery is promised a role in an upcoming film. And Gail, well, she gets to use the pass. She sleeps with Jon Hamm.
She achieves the exact objective she stated at the beginning of the film. She evens the scales.
But the psychological reality of getting exactly what you asked for rarely aligns with what you actually need.
Right.
Because the morning after, Gail realizes she and Hamm actually have a significant amount in common. The chemistry is real. But despite that, she chooses to honor the original framework of her life. She returns to Kansas to marry Tom.
Theoretically, balance has been restored. Tom used his pass, Gail used hers. The spreadsheet of their relationship is perfectly symmetrical again.
But returning to Willowbrook after what she just went through, I mean, it's like moving back into your childhood bedroom after you graduate from college.
Oh, that is the worst feeling.
Right. You unpack your bags, you try to fit your adult self into a twin bed surrounded by your old posters, but you've fundamentally outgrown the architecture of the space. The room hasn't changed at all. You have.
And the Rotten Tomatoes critical consensus heavily praised Zoey Deutch's performance in this final act for exactly that reason. She anchors the absurdity with a very grounded, relatable interiority.
She really sells it.
Because at the wedding altar, standing across from Tom, Gail realizes she just cannot go through with the ceremony.
She isn't the woman who washes hair anymore. She is a woman who navigated the criminal underworld, outsmarted Hollywood gatekeepers, and killed a syndicate boss. How can you care about a seating chart after that?
You can't, and this is where the film reveals its true thesis. It completely subverts the final lesson of The Wizard of Oz.
Wait, how so?
Well, Dorothy realizes there is no place like home, taps her heels, and goes back to her black and white life in Kansas. Gail goes back to Kansas and realizes the black and white life is suffocating.
Oh, I love that.
She didn't go to Hollywood to save her relationship or to get revenge. Subconsciously, she went to Hollywood to find out who she was without Tom. The resilient, capable version of herself that emerged in Los Angeles cannot possibly settle back into a quiet life in Willowbrook.
It completely recontextualizes the entire movie.
Yeah.
And just as she's having this profound, quiet realization at the altar, the film delivers one last, glorious, unapologetic piece of absurdity.
Here it comes.
Jon Hamm descends from the sky in a hot air balloon, landing right in the middle of the wedding, professing his love for her. Gail gets in. She leaves calm. She leaves Kansas. And she floats away into whatever comes next.
In any other film, a hot air balloon rescue would feel so unearned or just like a cheap visual gag. But because this narrative has been so deeply committed to escalating its own absurdist vision, from the briefcase to Weird Al to the hotel shootout, the balloon feels like the only logical conclusion for a story that began with Jennifer Aniston at a local book signing.
It is the perfect, chaotic ending. So if you are looking for a movie that flawlessly balances high-stakes action, hilarious cameos, and a genuinely moving character arc about self-discovery, Gail Daughtry and the Celebrity Sex Pass hits theaters on July 10th from Sony Pictures Classics.
It really serves as a brilliant reminder that sometimes it takes a massive, absurd disruption, whether it's a profound betrayal, a bizarre coincidence, or just stepping entirely out of your daily routine to discover what you are actually capable of surviving.
So we want to hear from you. Drop in the comments who your celebrity pass would be. But I am warning you, after this deep dive, you might want to reconsider your answer carefully. You never know what kind of chain reaction you might be setting off.
Yeah, and as you think about your answer, I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over.
Go for it.
We've analyzed Gail's journey, but let's apply the psychology to our own lives. Consider the fantasies we casually create. A celebrity pass agreement, constantly browsing Zillow for houses in a city you don't live in, or meticulously planning a dream vacation you know you'll never actually take. What if those fantasies aren't actually about the specific person or the specific destination at all?
I think I see where you're going with this, and it is entirely unsettling.
What if those daydreams are simply our subconscious mind building an emergency exit, a mental escape hatch from a life, a job, or a relationship that we secretly know we need to outgrow long before we are ready to admit it to ourselves?
Oh man, I am definitely going to be analyzing all my hypothetical Zillow browsing tonight. It completely changes the way you look at comfort food cinema, doesn't it? You start looking for the assassins hiding behind the floral arrangements. Well, that is it for us today. Thanks for joining us on this wild ride. Oh, and for the record,
Yes.
Weird Al Yankovic was fully within his rights to defend his property.
We completely respect it.